Welcome everybody to Beyond the Light episode 4. My name is Artyom, and in today's episode we are going to talk about the soundtrack and also how we crafted the in-game audio for 007 First Light. And for that we brought in our missions and audio director Dominic Vega, and also brought in the composers of the soundtrack for 007 First Light. Have fun!
I'm Dominic Vega. I am the audio and missions director here at IO Interactive on 007 First Light, and I've been on the project for about 4 years. From the earliest get-go, kind of the core of the experience in Bond is about the character, and it's about the mission that he's on. He's kind of living through and playing out this story. So from the very early onset of something, it's concepted out, it's drawn up for the team. But the audio department, we go off and we start thinking about what the musical motifs are going to be for individual characters, what the sound of that world or that location is going to be, what kind of sound sources we're going to need to record in the future, what kind of characters are we going to see, what accents are we going to be hearing as we walk through the world, how do we want to lay this out acoustically, so how do we want reverberation and reflection and all this kind of stuff to work in the game. We do some linear mock-ups as we get ready for that stage. We go out and we're recording a lot of source, getting ready for it. But we're also prototyping in the engine from day one. So as soon as we can get our hands on something new, we're drawing things up and kind of working back and forth with all of our designers. It's a really inspiring process. It helps inspire some of the processes we see on the screen, but also the work that the team is doing inspires the audio. So we've got an in-house audio team that's been on the production kind of since day one, shepherding this thing, and the philosophy for the audio team is really keeping it tight, keeping it small, having us being involved as early as possible, and working alongside the team while they're making it. But we bring a lot of experts in. We have a fully staffed music team, and it's led by our composers, The Flight, which is Alexis and Joe, fantastic partners in music who handled the original music composition for the game. We've got some of the best Foley artists and performers working on all of our character sounds and bringing those things to life. We sent our team out into the wild to record Aston Martins and handguns and all kinds of incredible source early in pre-production. But also, most excitedly, we brought a lot of live musicians into the game. So Joe and Alexis work a lot with some spectacular and fantastic soloists who were brought in for specialty instrumentation. But we also recorded our entire brass segment at Abbey Road Studios. Some of the best players in the world play out of that hall. It's an incredible sounding room, and it was an honor and a privilege to be able to kind of put a cap on the project by recording all that stuff there.
I'm Alexis, this is Joe. Together we are The Flight, composers on 007 First Light.
When we started the project, actually with all projects that we do, we try and come in with our own angle on things. Saying that, we didn't want to update it too much. You don't want to have something that's going to date. So all the scores for the James Bond movies in the past and the games in the past, they're very of their time, but you've got to be careful of not to do something that's so of its time that in the future it will date. So we wanted to do something classic, but with our bent on it. And we bring our own thing to everything that we do. And that was our main thing, was to make it sound like us, but without making it lose the core, which is the sound of the 007 franchise.
Modern, timeless. The good thing about Bond is, as a franchise, because it's lasted so long, it's already gone through a lot of kind of musical tastes. I like to think that as children of the 80s growing up in the UK, sitting down and watching Bond films on the sofa with our dads every Christmas, we just have it built in that you can play a chord pattern or a melody, and you know if it's Bond or not.
Yeah,
you just know.
Which was actually a bit of a surprise when we started, because when you get something, a franchise of this size, it's like, wow, can we actually do this? And it actually came pretty quickly, where we kind of felt that we have this in us. Because we're live players, it very quickly we put live instruments on the first, so after we get the idea going, one of the first things I'll do is pick up a bass guitar, or you'll pick up a guitar. We're very quickly working in the real world. It's not in the box. And then there's a creative path that you take, where you follow the music while you're playing, and your ideas will come as we're jamming. and then eventually we start writing for the orchestra, and then that goes to an orchestrator, and then we go to Abbey Road.
Because Bond is brass.
Yeah, it's all about
Bond is those strings. You know when you're hearing it, and it's Bond.
It's also the players. A lot of because we're in the UK, a lot of the players we use in the brass and the string sections have played on multiple Bond either games or films in the past, which is amazing. So you have the trumpeter who knows, they know exactly what they do. They're the same as us when we were working on it, writing. The musicians walk in and they know what they're doing is ready.
This is a bucket list thing for a composer, especially a British composer, recording James Bond at Abbey Road with 40 of the best musicians in London recording Bond at Abbey Road. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
One thing that I felt was really important for something that has such a cinematic pedigree and it has such a legacy is that there is a lot of the real world brought into the soundtrack, right? And that isn't just the music necessarily, but it's the sound effects. It's going out in the field, going out to an airfield north of Stockholm and recording drive-bys and engine revs of an Aston Martin. It's sending one of my sound designers out into the blistering snow to record pistols, to get quiet, non-reflective tales for the game. And then of course bringing in live musicians. There's a color and there's a flavor that you can feel in music when you've got people actually playing on top of it and playing alongside it. I think Joe and Alexis's music does a lot to lift the pixels on the screen. It brings you into the world. It reinforces the fantasy of being James Bond in this new world to him. But then more importantly, they brought in all these great players. So they always knew when to bring in a specialist to play on top of something. That extra little element, I think, is something that if you're an audiophile and if you're just a lover of the Bond music, that's something that's kind of for you. It's for people out there that can recognize and appreciate that little extra care that goes into crafting the sound. We want the sound of the game to be very handcrafted. We don't want it to feel artificial. We don't want it to feel hyper-processed. We want it to feel like I'm playing a film.
Now, let's see what all the fuss is about. There's Greenway.
So Bond is this really sonically rich IP. There's a lot of stuff to pull from. We sort of internally always talk about it like the vault. The themes are in the vault. We have access to all this great material, but we also kind of want to treat it with a lot of deference and respect. And I think playing that right on top of his very first footfall onto the ground in the opening of the game is going to feel really wrong for this origin story. When we were drafting up ideas for how the game should sound when we were in pre-production, one kind of idea kept coming up in my mind, which was he should earn his themes. James Bond earns his themes. And I think seeing that written out in just, clear white text on a black background is a concise way to kind of tell the team and tell our composers what we're looking for. We're looking for something that's understated, but we don't want to subvert the thing that you came for.
The opening of the game, where he's not actually 007 yet, has a completely different feel to much later in the game, where he's actually, he's done a few missions by this point. So there's the kind of experience of Bond at that stage was kind of like how much of the well-known themes we were going to use.
So you're earning those themes as you work through the game.
And then the setting, would trigger different instrumentation ideas for us. I mean, obviously, most of the tracks all the way through will have strings and brass and the Bond instruments, but we try to also have a kind of specific for each kind of new level palette as well. Again, I don't want to ruin too much about the settings of the game, but there's some quite different settings, and so we could use some quite interesting different instruments. And we also kind of got the vibe of like, this one's more kind of classic Bond. Yeah. This one's more kind of, let's push it, the modernity as much as possible. So we'd talk through that, and then we'd kind of split the level into roughly kind of pieces of music that we might need for that level. We try and start at the beginning every time.
Yeah. So the introduction to the level, then into some exploration, and obviously there's going to be some stealth. because you're a secret agent, and then there's going to be some action. We're also weaving in if there's any specific characters, either friend or foe, going to introduce some of their themes if they're important through the level as well. And the rest of it was just kind of going with the flow.
We just keep writing.
Keep writing
Dom and Kieran say, that's enough, we've got it.
We've also got the cinematic moments as well, which can be, you can go really kind of big, and there are some moments in the game where you can really let rip and bring in the themes and bring in the bondiness and go for it.
Along with earning his themes, another thing that I really wanted to really lay out for the player here was that instead of having this sort of through line or an underscore that could blend in and be a little bit more anonymous, this is James Bond, so we want to be a little bit more out there and in front. It's a music-forward IP. So the way we kind of designed the direction of music for the whole game is that every mission should sonically feel like its own record, right? We have a theme, we have an idea, and we kind of have a high point. We have a tent pole that we want to hit. That sort of gives us two levers to play with. While the character himself is moving through the world, he's earning little themes here and there. You're hearing these sonic motifs when he does something particularly Bondy. The world itself is this huge character, and that extends to sound design, that extends to acoustics, that extends all over. But musically speaking, we want to put the music in that space. Now, sometimes that's just music coming from radios, diegetic music that you hear, globe-trotting fantasy. But then other areas, it's actually embedded in the underscore. What I think The Flight did brilliantly is they found this beautiful medium between moving between Southeast Asian music and then into the Bond score and back out into this downtown London gala experience, back into the Bond motifs. We're sort of traversing this very carefully and trying to bring out the most of everything. The last thing about the album feel of every mission is that as opposed to having music kind of sit in the background, or music is maybe a little bit more subtle or subdued, we sort of established this term internally just called a needle drop. And so we would just, when we were working with The Flight, when we were working with our music team, we would just kind of identify a moment where we say, like, this is where the record scratches and the needle drops here. Because Bond is such a kind of high velocity but high pedigree IP, he is a tough character to sonify, right? We're working with a character who is really comfortable in high octane, high action sequences. Those are a blast for the sound team to work on, but also has to work and operate in really subtle and understated ways. And that's something that I think IO has perfected over the years, but something that we wanted to integrate into all of our systems. When we think about these aspects of audio design, we're thinking about voice design. How do NPC actors react in sound based on what the character's doing? Is he eavesdropping? Is he doing any kind of social espionage acts that we need to kind of draw the player's attention into, mix some other elements down to get out of the way? How do we let the acoustics of the space play in? Is that very important voice playing from, around the hall, through that door and around the corner? We want the player to be able to pinpoint that in a really subtle space. The high octane stuff is just an absolute blast to work on. I mean, it's a challenge. It's something that we put a lot of resources into, but it's the kind of thing that, we really, these climactic set piece Bond moments, we want to surprise, awe, wow. And it's that classic challenge of we want to hear our hero. We want to be with him and hear what he's saying. We want to hear an incredible motif, and we want super loud sound design in the mix all around you. It's really challenging, but it's a lot of fun for us to break off. Now for gadgets, those are really delicate, right? And I think that's something that the team had a lot of fun with, but it's really challenging because what does a gadget for a cool young James Bond in the modern day look like? It's a little bit different than every generation's fantasy of gadgets that kind of represent the future. The sort of analog that we came up with was that a lot of these gadgets are housed in these sort of pocketable items that could presumably make it past security. And so one of our sound designers, who's a bit of a mad scientist and is always playing with little toys and old cameras and just gadgets and a little electronics, kind of handled a lot of the source recording and getting all of the elements together for our gadgets. They are an amalgamation of synthesized sounds and this organic reel to kind of keep it grounded and feel like it's in the world. My biggest hope is the player walks away with an appreciation, with a feeling of high audio fidelity, with a kind of an excitement to stick the headphones back on, to turn the speakers up, to enjoy themselves being Bond. It's a kind of a globe-trotting adventure of a game, and I hope that the sound actually takes them on that journey as well.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and If you haven't seen it, we also got a couple other episodes already online. Feel free to check out the channel below. Pre-order the game now to earn yourself a free deluxe upgrade for 007 First Light, releasing on May 27th, and stay tuned for more content on this channel. We have a lot more coming your way. Thanks for that, and see you next time.
Agents have very short life expectancy. And if you do get caught, we will deny ever having heard of you. How does that sound?
When do I start?